What happens when two strong personalities collide on live television in a way that nobody saw coming? The Kelly Clarkson show was supposed to be another routine celebrity interview, the kind where famous guests promote their latest projects while sharing heartwarming anecdotes. But when Meghan Markle walked onto that soundstage, carrying herself with the poise of someone who had weathered countless media storms, neither she nor Kelly could have predicted how quickly things would spiral out of control. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because stories like this don't come around often. And drop a comment below telling me what you think really went down. Now, let's get into what actually happened. Behind those studio lights, the atmosphere in the studio felt different from the moment Meghan arrived. Kelly Clarkson, known for her warm and genuine interviewing style, had prepared what she thought would be a straightforward conversation about Meghan's recent charitable endeavors and her life in California. The show's producers had briefed Kelly on the approved talking points, emphasizing that this was meant to be a positive, uplifting segment that would showcase Meghan's humanitarian work. As the cameras began rolling, Kelly flashed her signature smile and launched into her opening remarks. "I'm so excited to have you here today," Kelly said, her voice carrying that familiar Texas warmth that had endeared her to millions of viewers. "I've been following your work with various charities, and I have to say, it's really inspiring, to see someone use their platform for such meaningful causes." Meghan settled into her chair, her posture perfectly straight, every movement calculated and deliberate. "Thank you, Kelly. It's wonderful to be here. I've always admired how authentic you are with your audience, how you're not afraid to be vulnerable and real." There was something in Meghan's tone, a subtle edge that Kelly picked up on immediately. Years of interviewing had given Kelly an almost supernatural ability to read between the lines to sense when a guest was holding something back or preparing to go off script. "Well, I try to keep it real," Kelly responded with a slight laugh. "Speaking of keeping it real, I have to ask about something that's been on a lot of people's minds. There's been so much speculation about your relationship with the media, and I'm curious about your perspective on how stories get told, especially when you're not the one telling them." The question hung in the air like a challenge. Meghan's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, her media-trained smile never wavering, but Kelly caught the flash of something darker underneath. "That's such an interesting way to phrase it, Kelly," Meghan replied, her voice taking on a tone that was simultaneously sweet and sharp. "Stories, as you put it, have a way of taking on a life of their own, don't they? Especially when there are people who benefit from keeping certain narratives alive." Kelly felt the energy in the room shift. The studio audience, who had been murmuring appreciatively at the beginning of the interview, fell into an expectant silence. Even the cameramen seemed to lean in slightly, sensing that they were witnessing something unexpected. "I think we all know how that feels," Kelly said carefully, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "The entertainment industry can be brutal, and sometimes the stories that get told about us aren't always fair or accurate." "Exactly," Meghan said, but there was no agreement in her voice, only the sound of someone preparing to make a point that had been brewing for a long time. "But here's what I find fascinating, Kelly. You've built your career on being the relatable one, the down-to-earth celebrity who understands what regular people go through. But when was the last time you actually faced real consequences for speaking your truth?" The question landed like a slap. Kelly's smile faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly, her professional instincts kicking in. "I'm not sure. I understand what you mean by that." "Oh, I think you do," Meghan continued, her voice growing more pointed with each word. "You get to sit here in your comfortable studio, asking pointed questions about other people's struggles with the media. But you've never had to choose between your family's safety and your public image, have you?" Kelly's jaw tightened slightly. She had been in the entertainment business long enough to know when someone was trying to provoke her, but she had also built her reputation on being genuine and honest, sometimes to a fault. "Meghan, I respect what you've been through. I really do. But I think you might be making some assumptions about my life that aren't entirely fair." "Am I?" Meghan shot back, her composure beginning to crack in a way that revealed the steel underneath. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've had a pretty smooth ride. American Idol, your talk show, your music career, all while being celebrated for being authentic. Must be nice to have that luxury." The studio had gone completely silent now. Kelly could feel the eyes of her crew, her audience, and millions of viewers watching this conversation take a turn that nobody had scripted or anticipated. Luxury Kelly repeated, her own voice beginning to carry an edge. Meghan, I don't know what kind of narrative you're trying to create here, but suggesting that my career has been easy or that I haven't faced my own challenges is not only unfair, it's just plain wrong. Meghan leaned forward slightly, her eyes locked on Kelly's. I'm not trying to create any narrative, Kelly, I'm simply pointing out that some of us have paid a much higher price for our honesty than others. Kelly felt something snap inside her at those words. The suggestion that she hadn't earned her success, that she hadn't faced real struggles, struck at the very core of who she was. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair as she leaned forward. Her famous warmth replaced by something much more raw. Higher price. Kelly's voice was steady but dangerous. Meghan, you don't know the first thing about what I've paid for anything. You want to talk about honesty. Let's be honest about what's really happening here. You came on my show with an agenda, and it wasn't to talk about charity work. Meghan's perfectly composed mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing something fierce and defensive underneath. I came here to have a conversation with someone I thought would understand what it means to be scrutinized by the media. Clearly, I was mistaken. Oh, you were mistaken. All right, Kelly fired back, her Texas accent becoming more pronounced as her emotions rose. You were mistaken if you thought you could come into my house and try to diminish my experiences, too. Make whatever point you're trying to make. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Kelly's producers were frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, trying to signal for a commercial break, but both women were too locked in their confrontation to notice or care. Your house, Meghan repeated, her eyebrows rising in a way that suggested she found Kelly's choice of words amusing. That's interesting phrasing, because from what I can see, this house was built on playing it safe, on being palatable to everyone. Must be exhausting maintaining that image all the time. Kelly's eyes flashed with genuine anger. Now, you know what's exhausting, Meghan. Watching someone who had every privilege handed to them act like they're the only person who's ever faced adversity. You married into the most famous family in the world. And when things got tough, you had the luxury of walking away. Some of us have had to fight for everything we have from day one. The luxury of walking away. Meghan's voice rose for the first time, her careful composure finally cracking completely. You think it was a luxury to have my child's safety threatened? To have lies printed about me every single day, to watch my husband's family stand by and say nothing while I was being torn apart? And you think that's unique to you? Kelly shot back, standing up from her chair now, her own composure completely abandoned. You think you're the first person to be lied about in the press? The first person to have their family attacked? I've been in this business for over 20 years, Meghan. I've had every aspect of my life picked apart. My weight criticized, my parenting questioned, my marriages dissected. The difference is I never expected the world to stop spinning because of it. Meghan stood up as well, both women now facing each other across the small coffee table that separated them. The studio audience was dead silent, some people holding their phones up to record, others simply staring in shock at what was unfolding. Expected the world to stop spinning. Meghan's voice was dangerously quiet now. Kelly, I never asked for special treatment. I asked for basic human decency. But apparently that's too much to ask when you're dealing with people who are more concerned with protecting an institution than protecting the people in it. Don't you dare, Kelly said, pointing a finger at Meghan. Don't you dare turn this into some noble crusade. You knew exactly what you were signing up for when you married into that family. You knew the scrutiny that came with it. But instead of handling it with grace, you decided to burn it all down and play the victim. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Meghan's face went through several emotions at once. Surprise, hurt, and then something much colder. Grace, Meghan repeated softly. You want to talk about grace, Kelly. Let me tell you about grace. Grace is keeping your mouth shut when people are spreading lies about you. Grace is smiling and waving when you're dying inside. Grace is protecting people who wouldn't cross the street to protect you. I had grace for years. And you know what? It got me. Nothing but more attacks and more silence from the people who should have stood up for me. Kelly shook her head, her frustration evident. So, Your solution was to go on television and air every piece of dirty laundry you could think of to make accusations that you knew would hurt people, including people who couldn't defend themselves. Defend themselves, Meghan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Kelly, they have an entire machine dedicated to defending themselves. They have press secretaries and communications teams and friendly journalists who will print whatever version of the story they want told. What did I have? What does anyone have when they go up against that kind of power? You had choices, Kelly said firmly. You always had choices. You could have taken the high road. You could have focused on the work instead of the drama. Could have proven them wrong by being better than the stories they were telling about you. Meghan's eyes narrowed. Easy to say when you've never been in that position. Easy to judge when you've never had to choose between protecting your mental health and protecting people who were never going to protect you back. I've been in plenty of positions where I had to make hard choices, Kelly retorted. The difference is I didn't run to the nearest camera every time someone hurt my feelings. The comment clearly struck a nerve. Meghan took a step closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Hurt my feelings, Kelly. They tried to destroy me. Not my career, not my reputation. Me. And when I finally found the courage to speak up, people like you want to lecture me about taking the high road. Kelly didn't back down. Speaking up and burning everything down are two different things. Meghan, you didn't just tell your story. You made sure everyone else's story got told, too, whether they wanted it or not. Everyone else's story. Meghan's voice was incredulous. You mean the truth. You mean what actually happened behind closed doors. I'm sorry if that made people uncomfortable, but I wasn't about to keep protecting people who never protected me. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch. Both women were standing close enough that their voices carried even though they were speaking in intense, heated whispers that somehow felt more dangerous than if they had been shouting. Kelly's eyes blazed as she stared at Meghan across the increasingly small space between them. You know what I think, Meghan. I think you're so used to being the victim in your own story that you can't see when you've become the one causing the damage. Meghan's face went white at those words, causing damage. Kelly, I was protecting my family. I was protecting my son from growing up in a system that would have destroyed him the same way it tried to destroy me. By destroying other people first, Kelly shot back. By making sure that everyone else got dragged through the mud along with you. That's not protection, that's revenge. The accusation hung between them like a live wire. Meghan's hands were shaking now. Her carefully maintained composure completely shattered. Revenge. You think speaking the truth is revenge. I think selective truth-telling is revenge, Kelly replied, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. I think choosing which parts of the story to tell and which parts to leave out, that's manipulation, and you're too smart not to know the difference. Meghan stepped back as if she'd been physically struck. Selective truth, Kelly. Every word I said was true. Every single thing that happened to me was real. I'm not questioning whether it happened to you, Kelly said, her voice softer now, but no less intense. I'm questioning whether you told the whole story or just the parts that made you look sympathetic. Sympathetic. Meghan's voice cracked slightly. You think I went through all of that for sympathy? You think I put my family through that scrutiny? That I risked everything just so people would feel sorry for me? Kelly shook her head. I think you went through it because you were angry and you wanted someone to pay for that anger, and maybe some of that anger was justified, but that doesn't mean the way you handled it was right. The studio was so quiet that the hum of the cameras seemed deafening. Even the crew members who had been frantically trying to signal for a commercial break had stopped moving, transfixed by the raw emotion playing out in front of them. You have no idea what you're talking about, Meghan said, her voice barely audible now. You have no idea what it's like to be completely alone, to have no one in your corner. To watch people you trusted throw you to the wolves. You weren't alone, Kelly said quietly. You had Harry. You had each other. That's more than a lot of people have when they're fighting their battles. Had Harry. Meghan laughed bitterly. Kelly, I watched that institution try to break the man I love. I watched them put him in impossible positions, force him to choose between his family and his wife. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? What it does to a marriage? Kelly's expression softened slightly, but her resolve didn't waver. I can't imagine how hard that was, but making it everyone else's problem, making it a public spectacle. That didn't help Harry. That just made everything worse for everyone involved. Made it worse. Meghan's voice rose again. Kelly, staying silent, was killing me. Literally killing me. I was having thoughts about ending my own life because I couldn't see any other way out. So, forgive me if I chose survival over protecting people who were never going to protect me. The admission hit Kelly like a physical blow. For the first time since the confrontation began, she looked genuinely shaken. Meghan, I had no idea it was that serious. Of course you didn't, Meghan replied, tears finally starting to form in her eyes. Because people like you don't want to hear about that part. You want to focus on the drama, on the palace intrigue, on who said what to whom, but you don't want to acknowledge that there was a real person going through real pain. Kelly felt the fight go out of her suddenly. She had come into this expecting to challenge Meghan on her choices, but she hadn't expected this level of raw vulnerability. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were in that much pain. No, you're not sorry, Meghan said, wiping her eyes but keeping her voice steady. You're uncomfortable. There's a difference. You're uncomfortable because I'm not playing the game the way you think I should play it. Kelly frowned. What game? The game where we all pretend that everything is fine. Where we smile and wave and never talk about the real cost of fame. The game where we protect institutions and systems that don't protect us back. You've been playing that game so long, Kelly, that you've forgotten it's even a game. That's not fair, Kelly protested. I've been honest about my struggles. I've talked about my divorce, my weight issues, my challenges as a single mother. Safe struggles, me countered. Struggles that make you relatable without making anyone uncomfortable. Struggles that don't threaten any powerful people or institutions. When's the last time you used your platform to call out something that actually mattered? Something that might cost you something. Kelly felt anger flare up again. I use my platform to entertain people, to make them feel good about themselves. Not everyone needs to be a revolutionary, Meghan. Not everyone needs to be a people pleaser, Meghan shot back. Some of us choose to use our voices for something more than just making people comfortable. Is that what you call it? Kelly asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Using her voice, because from where I sit, it looks more like burning down everything around you, and calling it activism. Meghan stared at Kelly for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. When she spoke again, her voice was calm, but final. You know what, Kelly? I came here thinking we might understand each other. I thought maybe you'd be different from all the other hosts who want to ask the same safe questions and get the same safe answers, but you're not different. You're just better at hiding your judgment behind a smile. Kelly felt stung by the accusation. I'm not judging you, Meghan. I'm trying to understand how someone can cause so much pain to so many people and still see themselves as the victim. And I'm trying to understand how someone can sit in a position of privilege and influence and use it to tear down someone who's already been torn down enough. Meghan's voice was steady now, but there was something final in her tone. I think we're done here. She started to remove her microphone, but Kelly stepped forward. Meghan, wait, this doesn't have to end like this. Meghan paused, looking at Kelly with something that might have been pity. Yes, it does, Kelly, because this is exactly what I was talking about. You can't handle the truth when it's not wrapped up in a pretty bow. You want the sanitized version, the version that doesn't make you question anything about the world you're comfortable in. That's not true, Kelly said. But even as she said it, she wondered if maybe it was. Isn't it? Meghan asked, fully removing her microphone. Now, tell me, Kelly, what are you going to do with this conversation? Are you going to air it as it happened, or are you going to edit it down to something more palatable for your audience? Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but found she didn't have an answer. The question hung in the air as Meghan straightened her jacket and looked around the studio one last time. That's what I thought, Meghan said quietly. Thank you for proving my point. Without another word, she walked off the set, leaving Kelly standing alone in front of a studio full of shocked faces, holding a microphone that suddenly felt very heavy in her hand. The cameras kept rolling for several more seconds before someone finally thought to call cut. But by then, the damage was done. The conversation that was supposed to be about charity work and positive change had turned into something much more complicated, something that neither woman had expected, but both had perhaps needed to say. So, What do you think really happened behind the scenes? Was Meghan right to call out what she saw as Kelly's comfortable complacency? Or did she cross a line by attacking someone who was just trying to do their job? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain on what really happens when the cameras are rolling.